Stampede. If you've never been, how do I describe it? It's 10 days of rodeo, roping cattle, bull riding, chuck wagon races, a midway with rides and food, and practically everyone is dressed the part, even the city slickers. Think cowboy hats, boots, whether or not you are an actual cowboy, you're wearing them. It's billed as the greatest outdoor show on earth. The grounds, of course, are where all that action happens, but Stampede doesn't begin and end at these gates.
Good God, it is Canada's premier music event. It's really 11 days. Everybody starts on the Thursday. I did some rough calculations, really rough, admittedly. We're coming up on 400,000 capacity.
If you haven't heard of Stampede's other circuit, let me explain. These are the grounds, and that's Cowboys, a big tent that's thrown a music festival almost every year since 1999. Today, there are like 7 of these tents outside of the grounds, each with different music festivals happening in tandem with the regular Stampede activities.
That used to just be about the rodeo. It was kind of a one-trick pony, no pun intended, but we've now come in full circle where we have so many great acts playing all over the city at Stampede, other tents, our tent, throughout the city. And I think that's what it's about. It really gives this special vibe for people coming to the city to really say, hey, I like country, I like electronic, I like hip hop, I like this, I like that. There's so many great shows.
So not just a country music hoedown, but whatever music you like, you'll find it somewhere in Calgary at one of these tent music festivals.
It's a party that encompasses the whole city, and it's somewhat like a Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Like there's something happening everywhere, something for everybody. It's the one time where tourism actually hits Calgary and people that fly into the city don't just head straight to the mountains. So, we capture people's attention and people come from all over the world.
It hasn't always been this way. So how did Stampede's music scene start to rival Stampede itself?
Stampede has always been notoriously like a big party, and the balance between the entertainment and the party has always been this kind of delicate balance too. Because, you can't just pop up a big tent and have everybody come and just drinking in there all day. You're going to have some reason to be there in many ways too.
Yes, it's always been about the party, but it hasn't always been about big music acts. Instead, think about a house band or buskers with fiddles in hand. Early on, the tunes were mostly country, so much so that when rock wormed its way in, some found that to be a little bit of a departure from the cowboy theme. An article in the Globe and Mail from 1972 says the secret to a good stampede is splitting time between the grounds and the hotel bars or the not-so-private clubs.
During the stampede, the fun isn't only on the grounds. The whole city comes to life both night and day. Right, you guys?
Convention centers with tables, drink, and music. People would line up for hours. The Palliser Hotel was transformed into the Paralyzer, and there was also the Silver Slipper and Golden Garter. In the 80s, bigger acts started to descend on the Stampede grounds themselves, right when the Coca-Cola stage was built. Later in the decade, Kenny Rogers and Sting performed in the newly built Saddle Dome. Stampede had its own club on the grounds. It was called 88th Street, with a beer garden and your favorite music in 4 themed clubs. A different club on Stampede grounds was born in 1992, Nashville North. Today, people call this the original Stampede party tent. Then in 1996, a new club hit the scene, this time outside of the grounds.
Nobody really talks about this, is that how this has really evolved. Credit to them, the first people to do it were Cowboys, the nightclub.
Well, it's been a long time. As you can see, my face has aged a bit over the years. It's 28 years here.
When Paul experienced his first Stampede running Cowboys, he was surprised to see the lineups, people queuing to get in the club before noon.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And of course, we need to get bigger. We can't handle all the business. It's just so busy. So then we got a little bit of a patio license to put some people outside, some small tents.
Like circus tents, he calls them. At first, the tents were small, so Paul says he couldn't draw in big acts. But as the demand kept up, the tents got bigger, so the acts got bigger too. The first official music festival for Cowboys was in 1999, with headliners like the Bare Naked Ladies and, according to the Cowboys website, Shania Twain. I'm not sure if it was actually the real Shania Twain. I saw a Calgary Herald article that said it was a lookalike known as Shania Twin. Either way, it was a wild success and a blueprint that other tents wanted in on.
Having the extra space and capacity is huge for us. It's a very big time of year for our company. Ballpark capacity is 4,500 to 5,000 here at Wild Horse, and over at National 2,500 to 3,000. So, at any one time we can have, close to 8,000 people enjoying what we have to offer.
And Greg says that those crowds can be an incentive for artists who might not typically stop in Calgary.
Yeah, some of those acts, are known to be regular, touring acts that come through. A lot of the hip hop and some of the EDM don't usually make it up here, and you've got a tent with 7,000 people in it. You can afford to bring in acts that would maybe never come up here. Another thing that's happening that on the other side of that coin is that there are corporate parties. A lot of them will just throw a Stampede breakfast with a local country band or something. But a lot of them are flying in name recording acts to play exclusively at their party for like 400 people. And a lot of Calgarians don't even hear about these parties, But there's some pretty major acts that roll through town. I remember George Thorogood a few years back and Blue Rodeo.
According to Tourism Calgary, between the stages on Stampede grounds and those scattered around town, there are more than 150 artists coming to Calgary to perform, which leads to another question. Is there a point when there's too much music?
Every year I'm thinking this is too much. Like there's too much going on. There's too many. But every year those tents come back. There's very few of those tents don't reappear the next year.
Well, I think it's always going to be a series of individual tents, because as I mentioned, because on any given night, the smaller tent really plays homage to that type of an act, which I think people want to see. Some people don't like the big, crazy, busy tents. They like a smaller one. I think there's an opportunity here for all kinds of venues to have a lot of success over the next 10, 20 years as this evolution grows out.
It's a good thing that there's all these different things to do. Yeah. So you and your gang of 5 or whatever, what are we doing today? Oh, there's this great show at Wild Horse at Cowboys. Let's head over there. And then the next night you go to this one, and the next night you go to the grounds, and the next night. That diversity makes people stay longer, and better for tourism. There's lots of good things about that diversity, of having the whole city involved instead of just the grounds.